Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we are going to we're going to be continuing our work on the DevSpace website, and we're going to do some work on the profiles. So let me go ahead and pull that up so that we can look at where we're at. So here's where we left off. I did a little bit of work offline, and for those who haven't seen my stream recently, we've done a decent bit of work in terms of making sure our call to actions were a lot more visible. I've added a little bit of some pictures for some color to make that a little bit more interesting and to give it a little bit of pop. We're sticking with the space theme because that's part of their, dev space. That's part of their branding idea. And I've gone ahead and offline made sure all of our pages were starting to lay out all of the same way with our nice content and sidebar. Last time we also dealt with the tables, so those are nice and pretty and responsive. So today what I want to do is, if we look at our speaker list, we're going to go and work with our speakers. And so one of the first things we notice is that all of these images have slightly different sizes and ratios, right? So we're definitely going to have to be careful. And like this one, for example, is squished. So we'll have to figure out how to handle that in order for our images to be nice and consistent and to prevent squishing people's faces, because we definitely don't want to do that. So let's go into the code. There we go. I can close that. We don't need that. And we're going to close some stuff because what we're interested in is our speakers right here. There we go. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the over here we have a header. We have a nice header, but this page in and of itself does not have a header, does not have an H1. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and do that because we really want our users to be able to know what are they looking at, right? So H1 over here. So I'm adding an H1 of speakers. The other thing is that will help with our SEO and our accessibility. So we definitely want to make sure we have proper headers in our application. So now we have our nice speakers. And so now each individual speaker, we have their name, we have their bio, and then we have some of their links to their social media accounts and their picture. So the first thing I'm going to do is handle the picture because that's going to be where the bulk of our work is going to land. The rest looks pretty cool. We could probably do something with that Twitter and add a Twitter icon to kind of show that it's a Twitter icon versus a personal, because all of these are personal. Oh, this one's twice. Fun. These are personal websites or personal accounts. So let's go ahead and deal with that picture. So if we look at how this code is put together for the speakers, we have all of this call for speaker stuff that are all call to action based on is currently hidden because I'm looking at the speaker list. And then we have our speakers here, our speaker here. And so we're using a templating system where so these comments are actually where the content is coming from. And here is our picture. So we have a data bind with our picture. We have a for loop, right? Here's our for each. And for each speaker, this is going to be an article with an H1, an image, our bio, and then our social media tags, which are going to be the link, the blog, and this one's actually the website and then the blog. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that these are not actually H1s. We have an H1 on our page, right? It's our speakers. These are going to be H2s, right? We want to keep our headers in order because that way it makes it easier for assistive technologies and crawlers to understand our data. We always want to keep those in sequential order. So these are all going to be H2s. So once I update, you will see that now these are our H2s. Now we can look at our picture. So the first thing I've done is, and I did this offline, is added an alt tag. And we need to kind of figure out, this alt tag, basically every single time it's going to be the profile picture of the user. It's not giving a whole lot of value, and I have no way of giving a good description of what that person looks like, right? I don't have that data. So it's not necessarily helpful to tell everybody, hey, there's a picture of the author here or of the presenter or the speaker here. So I'm just going to leave it blank because I don't have the data necessary to give something that's interesting. I also, if you notice, we have a lot of inline styles, so we're going to get rid of all of that. I'm going to leave the height and the width. And the reason I'm going to leave the height and the width is one, we're gonna change how this is done anyway, but the part of it is the height and the width allows for while the image is loading, the space that it's going to take up is being counted for, and so that helps with our load time and our reflow. So now that I've removed the styling, we can see that it's actually the first thing on our list. It was being floated. So what we generally want to keep the order in which things appear on the screen to be the same order at which they are in our code, so that if somebody's using assistive technology, they can follow along and it follows the flow that the code is in, right? So if we wanted to keep the image to the right, what we would want to do is make sure that that image actually comes after the content. I'm actually going to put the image to the left. I kind of like the idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this content over to be over here by this picture. But first, let's deal with the picture. So what I'm going to do is, in order for somebody to be able to, for example, bring in a rectangular picture and it still look good and not get squished, I'm going to make this a div, and we're going to apply the image as a background image. That way we can control the width and the height of the div, and then the person's image is going to be placed in as a background to it. And so even if the image doesn't have the same ratio as our box, we're going to be able to have something that isn't squished. So I'm going to do a div class of profile image. And this is where we're going to take that data bind. And I'm actually going to write an inline style over here. So we're going to do an attribute style background URL open paren plus our profile picture plus close paren. Oops, we need to close my div. That would be good. There we go. And now we don't see anything because our div doesn't have any content in it. So our div is of size 0, 0. So that's where we need to start writing some HTML or some CSS, my bad. So we're going to grab our CSS file. And I don't think I have anything set for profiles in here quite yet. No, so I'm just going to add it at the end. Let me say profile image. And our div I wanted to have, I'm going to keep the same size. That was a nice size. So height and width of 200. Height 200 pixels. Width 200 pixels. So that gave us a square. And so now I want it to be circular. I want to do kind of the avatar looking thing. So I'm going to do a border radius of 50%. And so now we should have a visible div. And that did not work on our background image. So let's see with the data bind. Let's look at what it's actually doing, because that block of space here is where our data bind is. Our images. And not an inline style, gasp. I know. Well, the reason I'm doing it inline here is because it's completely dynamic to the content, right? I don't have a whole lot of choice. I don't want to put the same face to everybody. Why is that not working? double check something really quick. Background image. What did I write? I wrote stuff that's not actually CSS. That's why. The unknown word. Oh, it's just being slow. Okay. Let's see. Still nada. It's doing a data bind. Style, background image, background URL. Ooh, we may not be able to do that. Because if we look at the output over here, I'm going to blow it up just a little bit to make it easier to see. If we look at the output over here, it's dumping the JavaScript in there. That's not legit. We're not going to be able to do that. Okay, rethink. Because as you can see here, it's putting the entire JavaScript function in there. That's not gonna, nope. Okay. That's not going to work. Huh. Okay. Well, let's go back to our image then. Because that is not going to be doable. So let's still go ahead and give that image a class and not use inline styles. Because that's still, at this point, we have no reason to give it an inline style. So we're going to do a profile image. And then, there we go. We're still going to have our border radius, so that'll be cool. But it does mean that when, what did I not save? I didn't save that one. There we go. It does mean that when we ask for our speakers to upload images, that we need to make sure that we are telling them what requirements we have for said image in order to make sure that they know that, hey, they need to have a square image in order for this to work properly. So we have images. So when we have a user with a white background image, we kind of lose some of that image. I'm going to give it a slight, just like a light gray border in order for images that have that white background not to get lost. So we're going to do a border, solid, 1 pixel. And I think we have I think I set a variable for our backgrounds, for our borders, I mean. I did. We have a border color. Cool. So we're going to use one of those CSS properties. So var border color. Awesome. Control save. Let's take a peek. So now our speakers that have a, there you go. This one's not working at all. But now our speakers that have a white background don't have that problem anymore. It's showing up regardless, and it's not intrusive for our speakers that have a dark background, right? It's kind of getting lost in the picture, which is nice. Okay, so once we have this, what I'm going to do is now we need to bring this text up by this image, right? So what we can do is we can float. That's definitely an option, and that's going to work quite well with our text. So let's go ahead and do that. Or another, which will work well for mobile, right? Well, maybe not. For mobile, if we look at what a mobile would look like, let's see. Let's start with mobile. Mobile's better to do first anyway. Okay, this is what we look like on mobile. So what we probably want to do is make sure that we have a separation between each speaker, right? Maybe a little bit more of a visual separator, because right now we don't have a whole lot of room between each of our speakers. So to do that, I think I'm going to go for a card layout, which is pretty standard for situations like for speaker cards, for example. Like you see that in a lot of conference websites, it works really well. So for each of these, I'm going to say that this is a class of speaker card. And so because we're dealing with a situation where we're not using a framework, we don't have components per se, we're not encapsulated, I'm going to go ahead and add this class, this speaker card profile.image, so that we have this specificity here, so that if we ever on a different page have something called profile image, such as when we go ahead and create the speaker, because this application has an entire portal for speakers to enter all of their information, we don't get leakage between the pieces, right? If we decide we want them styled the same, we can go ahead and remove this class, and then both of them would be styled the same way. But for now, since we're not dealing with that quite yet, I'm just going to go ahead and add that specificity so we don't end up with leakage. The other thing I'm going to do is for mobile, I'm going to center that image. So to center that image, I'm going to give it a display block, because images naturally are displayed inline, and inline elements can't take a margin. So I'm going to do a display block, and I'm going to say margin 0 auto. And what that will do is that we'll place it in the middle of our screen, right to left, right? So now we have our image placed in the center. Now we can deal with our card itself. So to make our card itself, I'm going to take our speaker card, and we're going to give it a border. Start with that. I'm going to use the same border we did on the image. It's nice and not too oppressive. And then we're going to give it some padding. Say 1 rem. And let's see what that gives us. Okay, so now we're starting to look pretty good, right? We're nice and aligned with our header. We've got our card. And now we just need to give some space between our cards. So in order to give some space between our cards, I'm going to say margin bottom 1 rem. Okay, cool. So we've got our speaker cards. Now let's address, and this looks pretty good. We have our title, or our name, we have our image, we have their bio, and we have their social media posts. We could probably center the name. That would look pretty good, I think, since we have the image centered in mobile. So I can do speaker card H2, and I specifically want to say the H2 in the speaker card because we have H2s all across the application, so we'll get leakage if I don't do that. Text align center, save, refresh, and that will center our H2. Perfect. All right, let's deal with these social media links. We have Twitter. So let's see, we're going to want to grab a Twitter icon from somewhere in order to put a Twitter icon beforehand, because right now it's not really clear what's what. Is Twitter a little bit, just because with format, we have the @ we kind of recognize that as Twitter, but the other ones we don't necessarily know. Is this the person's blog? Is this the person's website? We're not sure, right? I don't think Material Icons has a Twitter icon. I'm going to go check, but I don't think they do. Twitter. They do not. So the way I'm going to go find that Twitter icon is a lot of times social media companies like Facebook and Twitter and everything else have, and a lot of other companies too, but have a brand guide that allows you to download the assets that they actually want you to be using, and they'll actually usually tell you how you can and cannot use those assets. So let's see if we can find those assets or brand. Sometimes I can find it with brand assets, sometimes I can find it with guidelines. So see our logo, brand guidelines, and tweak tools. So let's see if we can't get their logo. Download guide. That's just the guide But that tells me how I can use the logo and what the logo is and spacing and all that fun stuff. But that's not very helpful to our Twitter logo. There we go. That's what we want. We want to download the Twitter logo. Did it download? It's downloading. There we go. Okay. So now that I have the Twitter logo, I'm going to go ahead and grab. So if I see over here, we have the Twitter logo and social media icons. And let's see what they have here. They have the EAI. And do they have just the bird the other way around? Nope. There we go. Now we have the bird. So I'm going to copy this SVG. And we're going to place it in our images folder. Somewhere over here we have images. Paste. Oh, it didn't take it. What's that? Let me go find it again. Downloads. Twitter, social media icons. Oops, I'm on the wrong screen. You guys can't see what I'm doing. There we go. SVG. I want the blue logo. I want to copy. I want to go over here. And I want to paste. And it's not letting me paste again. Okay, fine. You go here. Thank you. Okay. So now we have logo blue, which we're going to rename as Twitter because it's not art. That way we know explicitly what it is. Okay. So then, as you can see, it says standard SVG. This is what SVG code looks like if you've ever wondered. It's actually programmatic. It's got exactly one path, the bird. So now what we're going to do is over here, we have Twitter, right? This is our Twitter. It has a link. I'm going to add an ARIA label to tell the users that this is this author's Twitter. And then I'm going to give it a class of Twitter. And over here, we're going to say that anything with a class of Twitter before, that's anything that is an anchor tag. Anchor tag. With a class of Twitter, before the anchor tag, so before, I'm going to add a content of URL. And we're going to go URL. And we're going to go find that image. Images. We just renamed it Twitter. Cool. And I'm going to say that we'll figure out what that looks like and then go and do any adjustments that we need to do. So I can close this. We have our icon. Cool. All right, I'm going to refresh this. All right, it's pretty huge, right? It's pretty huge, especially once I increase to normal size. It's pretty huge. We're going to have to give that some parameters here. So I'm going to go do a display inline block because that gives me a little bit more versatility and more in terms of margin and padding and those sorts of things. I'm going to give it a width of, let's say, 20px. Let's see what that gives us. That's a lot better, right? We have our Twitter icon and we have our thing. And now I'm going to give it just a little bit of breathing room between the icon and the text. So in order to do that, I'm going to do a padding right of let's say 0.5 ch, because that's related to the width of our text. So that should scale nicely. Cool. So now we have some room between the two. That looks nice. Now we have the blog and the user's website to contend with, right? We have their website and we have their blog. So let's find some in those icons. Let's see what we can find for a blog or icon, web or icon. We could do the RSS for the blog. That's a cool one. Let's see what we have for web. And we could do a little earthy earth for website, or we could just put a link icon. How do you feel about an RSS? Have been a little in and out. Have you found and complained my important flag? Yes. I have found your important flag. I haven't complained about it yet, but I can if you'd like me to. Importance for those who don't know, importance are pretty bad because importance are often used by assistive technologies to override a site's website to make it more usable for that particular user, and to follow their own preferences. And so if we use importance in our application, it makes it a lot harder for users that would need to change our styles to make them able to read our applications better. That would be problematic for them. The other reason is they're incredibly difficult to override, which makes it breaks the ability to cascade CSS correctly. And so sometimes importance are necessary because something else is going on that forces us to use them. But generally speaking, I try to avoid them unless there's really no other workable option. Oh, I'm sure there was a reason. Do you remember what that reason is? By any chance? I'm curious to see. Because I remember seeing it, but I haven't addressed it yet. Okay, so I was looking for a blog icon. Yeah, so we said we were going to use the RSS one for the blog. So RSS. So the name of the icon is RSS feed. And over here you have this number. I'm going to copy that number and we're going to use that to do the same before trick we did for Twitter as we did for the others. So I had to force override an inline style coming from the Twitter widget. Yep, that would be the only way to do that. That would be one of those reasons, or it's the only time you can do that. And that's the other reasons I'm fairly anti inline styles, is because it forces situations where you have to do that. I'll see if we can't try to make it even more specific than they're specific to see if we can't get rid of the important. Well, no, because it's inline. Yep. Inline's the only way. Because their styles are inline, I can't override it using semantic CSS. And that is why inline styles are bad. So website, let's do, we wanted the blog. There we go. So we're going to give this one a class equals blog. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to say a.blog before content. And remember how I copied this magical number? I'm going to go ahead and paste that magical number. And in this particular case, I do need to say that it's a font family of material. I need to find the other one. I can never remember. It's material icon or material icons. It's material icons. There it is. I think. Because we want that. There we go. Right. Oops. I guess I copied the entire line. That works. There we go. And so that should put the icon right before our text, because that little code number is basically the Unicode value for that. So that works. And let's find somebody that has a blog. Okay, there we go. There's one with a blog, and it totally did not work. What? Oh, we have a square. That's interesting. Why do we have a square? Oh, because that's not legit CSS. There we go. That's still not legit CSS. Now, if we get rid of, copy pasting badly, we should have something nicer. There we go. So we have that icon right here. So now we need to go ahead and style it because that's kind of small compared to our Twitter bird, right? We kind of want those to be the same size. So I'm going to, the first thing I'm going to do is, because we're not underlining the Twitter, right? Even though you can click on Twitter and it'll take you there, I'm going to go ahead and remove the underline. And then what we're going to do is resize it a little bit. But this is coming from the icon font, and I'm just using the letter value that was assigned to that icon font. So it's technically a letter. So it's no different than me actually writing blog colon in a lot of ways. It's a letter. So I need to treat it very similarly to what I would a letter or a glyph, if a glyph is a better term. So I'm going to definitely remove the underline. So text decoration, none. And we're going to increase the font size. So I'm going to say font size, let's say 2 rem. We're going to double its size and see what that looks like. It did not remove the text decoration, but size-wise, we're getting there. Why did it not remove the text decoration? Inspect. Before. We have our before. Text decoration none. That's weird. Let's see if I do, out of curiosity, if I do a link, is it a specificity issue? I'm going to remove everything else. We don't need that twice. Just checking to see if it's a specificity issue. Nope. It's interesting. Oh, because of the PA link. Yeah. All right. So let's see. Yep. Let's add the visited PA link dot blog. Or we want visited as well. Visited. Nope. Interesting. Interesting. If I do, let's get rid of the before. Oh, I didn't have the before here though. Let's try that. Maybe I have visited that link before, who knows? Probably. Nope, that wasn't it. Okay. Well, I mean, we could take the underline off of all of them anyway, because that gets a little crowded. We kind of figured that those are going to be links. So we're going to say that speaker card. And I'm going to add a class here of media link. Class equals media link, because if the author has or the speaker has links in the middle of their bio, I don't want those to disappear. I do definitely want to keep the underline there. This one, it's not as problematic. Okay, so this is where again it's going to find a link dot media link dot speaker card a visited dot media link. So I'm saying that those media links, I want a text decoration, none. Let's see. That should get rid of all text. What? Oh, if I save the HTML file, that helps. Yeah, definitely want to do that. Okay. All right. So we've gotten rid of the underline, which isn't so bad. And now we just need to align this a little bit further down, right? This is kind of hovering into space a little bit, which is not cool. So we're going to, and I can get rid of that since it was definitely not working anyway. We're going to say that we're going to do since I have it as we're going to do a display inline block as well, which will allow it to be treated a little bit more like a span in a lot of ways. Avoid some div, but inline. I can do a vertical align, and we're going to do a vertical align baseline and see what that looks like. So that would align it to the baseline of the text, assuming it has no padding, but this obviously has some white space or some line height. Actually, let's play with the line height. Maybe we could achieve this more easily with the line height. Line height 0. Nope. Okay. Vertical bottom. Let's show that. Put me at the bottom. And too low. Okay. I wonder why baseline wasn't doing that trick, because that's you. Well, we can try middle. I mean, it's definitely not going to be top, so we've tried all the others. That's better. That's much better. So now if I remove my little game with the line height, I do want to keep the inline block, otherwise all this stuff will not work correctly anymore. Ish. Not ideal. I have a set. If I set the width on this, what I can do. We can technically. Are we too high or too low? We're too low. We can technically give it a margin bottom. Or a padding bottom. We want to pad the specific item, because if I do margin, it'll push everything. Padding bottom of, let's say, 0.025 rem. Let's try that. We're really wanting to just inch it up a couple pixels. I don't think that did anything. Let's try 2.5. Fine. I'm just going to do what I just said I wasn't going to do. We'll see what that works. Because C now pushes the whole thing. That's not moving. Fine. Fine. So the other option we have is to do a position relative. So we're going to get rid of all of that. We do want to keep the inline block. We're going to get rid of the vertical line. We're going to do a position relative. And now we're going to say it's going to position it wherever it's going to position it, which is not where we want it. You see it's too high. And I'm going to say, hey, I want you to be further from the top. So I'm going to say top, I want you to go down by 0.025 rem. I want you to be a little bit lower. And the reason I'm keeping it in rem, if I did it in pixels and somebody increased the font size on their screen, then it would be off again, right? So if I do it in rem, everything's still proportional to the size of my font, and I'm good to go. Cool. Now we're getting somewhere. 0.25. We got maybe 1 or 2 more pixels to go. So let's say 0.3. That lines us nicely. Cool. Perfect. So now we have, and I'm going to go ahead and squash the line height anyway, because it's really pushing our stuff in ways that I'm not content with. There we go. Okay. So we now have our and we can give it a little bit of breathing room between the icon and the text. Let's say margin right. Let's say, what did we give it last time? 0.5 ch? 0.5 ch it is. Let's see what that gives us. Okay. That's a little much. And the reason it's a little much is because that 0.5 ch is relative to this 2 rem, and this 0.5 ch is relative to 1 rem, which is what the anchor tag realistically has. So if we wanted that to be the equal amount of space as the one above, we actually need to do 0.25. M's have the same kind of problems as doing ch, is it's relative to the size of the container, not relative, or it's relative to the font size of the container, not relative to the actual baseline size, which is why rems is so much nicer, because you're always looking at your baseline size rather than having to figure out what your container size is. Okay, one last one to go, which is the website one. And so for the website one, we said we were going to use, and go back to Google Fonts. We had typed in web. That's pretty cool. We could do the link. What y'all think? A link or a globe? Globe? Globe it is. All right. So with that, let's find its number. So we are on, yep, I'm on the globe. That's its number. And now most of the gymnastics we just did for the blog, we're probably going to have to do again for the globe. So what I'm going to do, because I really don't want to write this gymnastics twice, I'm going to say a.blog, comma, a.website. Everything that's not the content, because that's going to differ for both, I'm going to put it in here. And then now the only thing that's specific to blog versus specific to website, and I just copied and pasted, so I need to go refetch this number. There we go. I really appreciated that they added that. They didn't used to have that in there when they first came out, and so there was these cheat sheets floating all the way around the internet we had to reference. So I really appreciated that they had added that directly in here. Makes it so much easier. All right, and I did notice that I don't have a class of website set yet here. Web site. So what these will do is they'll give us a little bit more, oh, wrong side, I'm trying to refresh. This will give us a little bit more indication of what kind of content we're looking at. We were just kind of missing before. Ooh. I did something terribly wrong. Nope, nope, nope. What? Refresh. Something went wrong. Oh, it hates me now. Okay. A blog, a website, bracket, bracket, media link website. It didn't break that. My guess is we have a class of website somewhere. That is my guess. Let's do web link. Well, let's do speaker web. That's probably not being used. And then I'll have to go figure out where that class is, because that's probably what's going on. Maybe? Nope. Go back to website. Oh, I figured it out. I didn't put the before. That'll help a lot if I actually put the before. So website with no S before. Oh, I'm sure I missed it. You snooze, you lose. Haha. Still nada. Okay. What's up with what? A website before content. All right, let's remove this class, see if the issue is in the HTML or in the CSS. First point of... Okay, so our issue is in the HTML because it acted stupidly when. So let's remove that and see if that helps. How about now? No. Well, that is... What in the world? Inspect. Yeah. That's what I asked for. Nope, that's not what I meant for you to do. Okay. Comment that out. I didn't change. I added the class, media link. This was all working a second ago. Hard refresh. Hard refresh. Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Reload you completely. Okay. Something fishy's going on. Something very fishy's going on because I'm getting two completely different behaviors on different screens. Nope, there it is. Interesting. Let's see. So, we have Twitter. We have a line break, which this we will handle via HTML, via CSS. We have a line break, which we will handle via CSS. We have a blog.a website. Before, I forgot all of our befores. So we are making it do very weird behaviors because I forgot all of our befores. That is our issue. There we go. That should fix it all. Hopefully. There we go. Much better. Funny how that works. So now we can reinstate our website link. Website. And we're going to give everybody some margin. So, dot speaker card, a dot Twitter. This time I don't want the before. That's dot speaker card, a dot blog, dot speaker card, a dot website. And a lot of you are going to have a margin. Bottom. Actually, we can give them some padding to make them easier to click. Padding. So top and bottom, let's say 0.5 rem. And then left and right 0. And that should be a lot nicer. Oh, we should probably do them and display inline block. Display block as well if we want them stacked. Display block. And so now we have them blocked. And see, even though when I see the same little edits I had to do for the blog ones worked exactly on, like, to the nailed it on the web one. I am gonna decrease it because the bird seems a little small compared to the other two. So I'm gonna decrease that font size down to maybe 1.5. Let's see. Better, much better. And now our alignment is off just a little. So over here, we're gonna do, that's the margin right, that's the top. Much better. Cool. And we still look fun and good in mobile, right? Because we didn't, still totally works. But now we have much better context for what it is those links represent. We do still need to add some ARIA because this one, it's not telling us where it's going, right? Or maybe it is. It's maybe the data binding that I'm not recognizing. Let's double check what it does. Open Sesame. Oh, it does have the text. And that does in fact have the text. No, we actually don't need this ARIA because the text is being, it looks empty visually right here in the code, but this data bind is actually inserting the text. So we're good. Cool. Right. So now if I take this to desktop mode, wide, this works pretty well, but I think we should do maybe we can like put them side by side because that's a whole lot of scrolling, especially if we have a lot of speakers. If it's a busy year, I think we can align them a little bit. So what we can do on larger screens is we're going to write a media query, and I think we already have a couple in here. Media, yeah, we have one for 900. Yeah, so we're going to reuse the same size, and I'm going to write it here instead of dumping it in that other one so that all of the codes related to speaker stuff is kind of together. Okay, so at media 900 pixels in width. And this is where I think we should try something kind of experimental. I want to see, recently we had, oh, we've already gone through, it's already 1:54. Never mind, we'll try experimental things next week. Because I think we should figure out if we can do a masonry grid. So next week we'll try to figure out if we can do a masonry grid. So I think at this point, I am going to go ahead and flex it just to see how it looks, to see if that's even a good idea or not. So let's see. We're going to take all of this entire section, which is probably get in class speakers, and we're going to make sure that that's no interaction with anything else, that nothing else already had a speakers. No, I didn't fork everything. Okay, that's speakers. Let's see what happens if I display grid. And then we're going to agree grid column, grid template column. Repeat. Let's see, 1FR. And 1FR means fraction. So essentially what I'm telling it is I want you to give me two columns that are both the same width. And then we're going to do a grid gap of 1 rem. And I also know that at this point I'm going to want, see, we had put on our cards, on our speaker card, where's your speaker card? We had given it some margin bottom to separate it. And so I'm going to have to make that margin bottom go away, because otherwise we're going to end up with that margin plus the gap, which we don't want. So speaker card, margin bottom 0. Yeah. Refresh. Cool. That is what we look like. Cool. And so this is where I think a masonry grid would be super cool, because see, these two have very different lengths of bios. And so I think we could do something fun. And this gives us a nice 3-column layout, right? Where you have your mailing list and your 2 speakers. I think if I go any smaller with the if I do more than 2, we're gonna end up being way too scrunched. But so what I'm gonna do is, this is where I think masonry grid would be fun. So I think for next time we will figure out if we can get these to do a masonry, and we'll also work on a fallback, because in order to even get masonry grid to work, we're going to probably have to turn on some experimental flags, which obviously the average user does not have those on. So the idea behind doing that, or why you would even do that, is when it becomes mainstream, when masonry grid ends up working for people's devices, we can then go ahead and bank on it and it'll just work. And we don't need to think of, I can write the code to say, using media queries, I can say, hey, if your browser supports this feature, go ahead and use it. If it does not, I want you to use this other code. And so that way, when people's browsers update, they can start using that latest and greatest, and we don't need to think and listen to, oh, this browser went ahead and implemented, this browser went ahead and implemented, this browser went ahead and implemented, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. We can say, hey, there's this new technology, I really want to use it, I'm going to use it. I'm going to say, if the browser has the ability to use it, go ahead and use it. And then I'm going to write the alternate that I would have written if we, for those technology pieces that don't support it. And then as adoption gains, it just magically works, which is super cool. So I think that's what we'll look at for next time, because we're out of time for today. So that is what I've got for you so far. Thank you for your comments and for hanging out with me. I will see you again, same time, same place next week.